Hey guys, welcome back to Insight Tennis Tour Stroke Series. My name is Rick Oldroyd. You guys have probably noticed that the clay court season is well underway. We're in the middle of the Madrid tournament right now, and Rome is coming up next, and then of course Roland Garros. And one of the shots that you're going to see a lot and is so effective on the clay, and I don't believe this shot is talked about enough, is the drop shot. So what we want to talk about today is the drop shot, the importance of being able to execute this shot, especially at higher levels of play. It's a great way to change up what you're doing in a match, to change up the rhythm. If you've got an opponent that is really gets into a nice rhythm, this is a great way to break that rhythm up, give some variety. It also brings your opponent in, and clearly if you have pushed your opponent back first, that's one of the key things. You've got to make sure you've pushed your opponent back to way behind the baseline. That's the time to be hitting that drop shot, and that's when it's going to be most effective. So how do we hit the drop shot? If you've never really learned how to hit this, one of the first things that I think you need to learn how to be able to master is very, very thin contact. Okay, it doesn't really matter about the backswing and all that right now. You just got to get an idea of the thin contact, and then eventually you're going to add more of a backswing, and then eventually you're going to actually look like you're going to hit your normal ground stroke, and then last second you're going to change and hit the drop shot. So a good way to practice this is just go out on a wall. If you don't have someone to hit with or feed you balls, you can just go ahead and get on a wall and you can practice this. So on the backhand side, we're going to practice this first, and again, the key is thin contact. That's what I'm trying to achieve. So what I'm going to do is just feed myself a ball here, and I just want to notice how thin that contact is. That ball is going to come down, and it's literally coming down when it hits that wall, and that's exactly what I want. Okay, so you can see again, very, very thin contact. Now, even if you don't take as much of a backswing, that's okay. You've got to practice this thin contact. Okay, so let's take a look at a little drill that you can do to learn how to hit this really, really thin contact with the ball. And again, idea being you're basically really catching the ball very, very, very thin. And that is one of the key things to hit an effective drop shot. Okay, so let's go ahead and practice that. Just feed yourself a ball and notice how thin my contact is. Very, very thin. That's exactly what I want. That one hit almost at the bottom of the wall, and that's what I'm looking for. Very thin contact. And you can see I should be able to just stand here all day long and do that, and that's what I want. Notice the very, very thin contact that's barely hitting. It's actually coming down when it hits that wall, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. Okay, and then we know that that ball is going to land very, very softly, and it's got a lot of backspin on it, so it's going to be very, very difficult. Sometimes if you get it too high, it's not nearly as effective, obviously. Okay, that was a really, really good one. Again, very, very thin contact is the absolute key on that drop shot. Okay guys, welcome back. On the last segment, we talked a little bit about very, very thin contact and practicing that thin contact on the drop shot. Again, we're going to talk about in a few minutes the importance of the disguise. In order to hit an effective drop shot, you've got to have a great disguise so that your opponent doesn't know that's what's coming. But first of all, you've got to learn the technique and learn how to have that thin contact. Now, with this segment, we're going to go ahead and look at taking a little bit bigger backswing, so that, again, if I look like I'm going to be hitting a slice, and then last second I'm going to go ahead and hit that drop shot. And that's another key thing, is the disguise. So we'll go ahead and look at taking a little bit more backswing in this segment, and again, keep in mind the thin contact. Let's take a look at what that looks like. All right, you can see I've got a much bigger backswing, but I'm still coming in, and I'm actually making very thin contact with that ball. Okay, and that's exactly what I want. So big backswing, and then I'm cutting underneath the ball. It looks like I'm going to hit a slice until the last second. The key thing on that drill is to make sure that it looks like you're going to be hitting a normal slice, and then last second I'm going to go ahead and cut underneath that ball and hit the drop shot. Disguise is the key, guys. Hey guys, welcome back to Insight Tennis. In the last segment, we looked at the drop shot and practicing very, very thin contact with the ball. And we looked at taking a little bit bigger swing as well, so that you're disguising the shot. It's going to look like you're hitting a normal, slice, taking the racket back like I normally would on a slice backhand. And then last second, as I'm coming down, instead of coming down and across, I'm just going to go ahead and cut underneath that ball and hit the drop shot. So let's take a look at what that looks like. As you can see here, I am taking the racket back pretty far like I normally would on a slice, and then last second I'm go ahead and I just cut underneath that ball. So you can see there's very, very thin contact, but I'm taking a much more normal backswing, but then last second I'm going to go ahead and just cut underneath that ball, which is exactly what I'm trying to do. And the more thin I can make that contact, that gives me more backspin, and that's going to be a much more effective shot. The other key thing on this drill is you want the ball coming down when it hits the wall. Okay, that's a great way to practice it, and you want the ball, the trajectory, so the ball is actually coming down, so it's going to land very, very soft, and it's got that good backspin on it, and that'll be very, very effective, difficult for your opponent. Okay guys, in this segment we're going to go ahead and take a look at the importance of disguise on the drop shot. And this is one of the key things, in my opinion. You've got to be able to disguise the shot so that your opponent clearly doesn't know what's coming. So it needs to look like you're hitting your normal shot, and then last second you're going to go ahead and hit the drop shot. So we'll start with the one-handed backhand first. Let's take a look at what that looks like. Notice I've got my normal swing here, and then last second I'm just going to cut underneath that ball, hit the drop shot. Let's do that again. And the key thing here, guys, is make sure you're selling it. Okay, your opponent's got to think that I'm going to actually, so my preparation is here, I got to get clear to here before I decide to hit that drop shot, right? So that the last second I'm just going to change and go ahead and come underneath that ball. That's one of the key things to make sure that the disguise is there, and you're going to be much, much more effective drop shot.